But as usual, it's very deceptive because he's the master of grabbing your attention with this ghastly premise, only to tell a story that is very human.
And sometimes I think in this business and in life, everything happens for a reason, everything happens when it's supposed to, and it felt like this was the moment when the film was supposed to come together.
I got to a point in the mid to late 90s where I thought, I don't care if I ever do on camera again. How do you describe the indescribable?
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming to do this, Mark. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
It's an absolute thrill to be chatting with you today, and I really appreciate you making the time.
Sure.
I know that you're a huge Stephen King fan, as am I, and I am so excited to chat not only about The Long Walk, but also The Life of Chuck and just Stephen King in general. I mean, there's so much that goes into adapting a Stephen King novel, and I'm curious, when you first got The Long Walk, the script, when it was sent to you, were you familiar with the book? Had you read the book?
What I do when they show any interest, I always order the original source material. Now, If It Bleeds was Life of Chuck. This one's one of his more modestly, it's not this thing.
Yes, yeah. More of a novella.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was really hard to get past the premise, which is ghastly, this dystopian government that has this event where if you don't do the right thing, you get a bullet in the head. I thought, with the gun violence in this country. But as usual, it's very deceptive because he's the master of grabbing your attention with this ghastly premise, only to tell a story that is very human and life-affirming, in the sense that the heart and soul of the story is really these young men faced with this unimaginable adversity in the way they support each other, and there's rivalries. I mean, it's just great. The antagonist is the state, but as representative of the state, the major fulfills that function. But he's a one-note antagonist that, if I do my job, people should just hate my guts. He's devoid of compassion. He's probably a sociopath, very angry. There's a lot of layers to him, but he serves one basic purpose. And like I say, the heart and soul of the story is when you experience it through the eyes of these young men. And the way we filmed it, obviously, I wasn't around to see that. Now, it was on the page, but I wasn't prepared for how well it was realized on screen. I hadn't seen, I don't think, any of these actors. Roman Griffin Davies I'd seen in Jojo Rabbit,
right.
Licorice Pizza Cooper, and then eventually my son said, "You gotta see Alien Romulus," is it?
With David Johnson,
yes.
Of course.
And now it's sort of like a pet project of mine. I'm going to go to the IMDb pages and see a lot of what these guys have done, because it was just, you wonder where the talent of tomorrow is coming. Oh my gosh, it's an embarrassment of riches. Not just the main guys and the supporting, but even the people that have one or two lines are completely just perfectly cast.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was such an incredible collaboration with Francis Lawrence, the director, because we really were very focused on trying to uncover as many stones as possible, really dig deep. Every one of those actors read for the roles, and it was actually my third time working on the film. I had done two previous iterations
that
of it.
never were fully realized.
Never were fully realized at different studios with different directors, different scripts.
Yeah.
And so we had gotten all the way to the point of finding the boys with those, and then it didn't materialize. That's a heartbreaker in casting, because you're really emotionally invested in them. So when this iteration came around, I was initially reluctant. I just didn't know if I could emotionally go there again, because I was like, I've been there twice, and there's been so many deaths. J.T. Molnar's script, and then of course I wanted to work with Francis Lawrence, so I said I'm going to go there. What I loved so much about Francis and the way he approaches the work is he really wanted to see it. He wanted to see these boys reading these scenes. He wanted to, because we made them do their death scenes, we put them through their paces, and we really needed to make sure that they could emotionally go to the places that we needed them to. So to see that realized on screen, it was incredible. And in a way that I felt so proud. And sometimes I think in this business and in life, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens when it's supposed to. And it felt like this was the moment when the film was supposed to come together with this cast in this moment, and especially everything that's going on in the world right now. It's very prescient to what's happening. And
this was before they were sending the National Guard into cities.
It was before that. And now you've kind of, but we have that going on. And I will say, and this is what I'm so intrigued to ask you about, the Major was a tough role to cast. It always is. I think a lot of actors are frankly scared of it because it's the villain, you know, and it's a lot of tricky moral ground to cover with that role. I loved the idea of casting you in this role because I don't think that audiences have fully had a chance to see you. This is the villain. You play the hero so often. Obviously, you've been the Joker so successfully. I mean, you had villainous shades in The Last Jedi and some other stuff. But this was really a leap of faith. I was like, I didn't know what your reaction was going to be when you read the script. And I remember chatting with Francis about it. Francis loved the idea and was so excited and was like, I love Mark. Let's send it to him. Let's see what he thinks. But I think both of us were like, is he going to like it or is he going to think we're crazy? You know, I'm just so curious when you read the script, what did you think?
Well, part of it is I did want to work with Francis Lawrence.
Yes.
I mean, I'd seen the Hunger Games movies, and he was that was a big deciding factor. I thought, if I turn this down, my odds of working with him plummet. I'm always of a mind that it happened with Mike Flanagan, too, where I'll read a part and think, well, why would he think of me for this? But if he thinks I can do it, I can do it. You know, that you have that much trust in the director, in this case, in the material. Having Chuck and Long Walk back to back is just a testament to his versatility as a writer. Because when Mike said, I want to send you this, there might be something for you in it, I immediately ordered If It Bleeds. So I got the short story before he sent the script. And I had been a fan of Mike before he wanted to work for me. I'd seen The Haunting of Hill House, which I thought was great, and The Haunting of Bly Manor. Even better, we saw Midnight Mass, which is full-on vampire epic. And I said, this guy is great. He's a great storyteller. I love his big ensemble cast. Now, you're a casting director. I was looking at these people go, besides Henry Thomas, I had never seen any of them. Samantha Sloyan and Carla Gugino, and go on and on.
Incredible cast.
And I said, where have these people been all my life? I mean, they're so compelling, and I love big ensemble cast. But what I'm saying is, based on his resume, and he's sending me the script from Stephen King, I'm expecting the supernatural horror epic of all time. So I was set up in a wrong way, but worked perfectly for the impact. Because when I read Life of Chuck, it was so out of left field and so heartwarming and, again, life-affirming. I thought this movie is coming at the right time in our timeline because it's almost therapeutic. It's a testament to his versatility because, like I say, Shawshank Redemption, we shouldn't be surprised because not everything is dark like that, but a lot of his things have nothing to do with the supernatural, and obviously The Long Walk isn't supernatural, but it has that horrific premise. I mean, it's about these guys and
the humanity between them.
Exactly. And that's what was so compelling to me. I said, well, I have to do this.
Well, that's fantastic. And congratulations on The Life of Chuck. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in one of the things you said. So I have had the benefit of casting an amazing young actor that you worked with in that, Benjamin Paycheck, who I love and adore and is a little dynamo. He's
Where did they find this young man? I know he was in the revival
Broadway
of Music Man. And you can see he dances in the movie, but he just got cast in the musical version of The Lost Boys.
Wow.
On Broadway.
I love that.
It wasn't hard for me because all three actors that I worked with, I'm very isolated. I don't work with Chiwetel and Carl Lumley and Tom Hiddleston and Karen Gillan, but Mia Sara, who I absolutely adore, little Cody Flanagan, and like you say, Benjamin Pajak. I just thought he's indescribable, really. You can go on YouTube. He sings Where Is Love from Oliver, which is really, in the context of the show, plaintive and forlorn. It's at his lowest ebb because everyone's so terrible to him. Benjamin belts it out like it's an up-tempo, joyous number. He's amazing.
He's amazing. Well, it was a question I had for you because one of the things that I'm so interested in that you said is about Mike Flanagan, you know, seeing you in this role. Francis Lawrence saw you as the major, you know, the casting directors behind that I think are really having those conversations with the directors. I cast Benjamin Paycheck. I got an opportunity earlier in my career to work on It and found a wonderful young cast for it with Andy Muschietti, the director. And so I kind of felt like for a little while I got typecast as casting younger actors. That it was like, oh, he's the go-to guy for younger actors. And I find that after playing such an iconic role like Luke Skywalker, everyone's thinking he's the hero, he's the hero, he's the hero. But I think that casting directors have always really been at the forefront of kind of trying to think outside the box and really think about, well, what other colors can this actor play? Because they understand an actor can do many things. It feels like in the last year, you've gotten this incredible opportunity to play these two wildly different characters, both Stephen King characters, but the life of Chuck is life-affirming, heartwarming, old soul. And then 180, the Major, is really just this morally cloudy guy. I mean, that must be really exciting.
I found myself, when you do something well in Hollywood, they want you to do it over and over again.
Over and over again, exactly.
So my first impulse was to go to New York, and I knew that there were open auditions. It's not like they were clamoring for me. They weren't at all. But I auditioned for Sir Peter Hall. That led to first replacing in The Elephant Man, and then the national tour of Amadeus, and then I got transferred to Broadway. My point was, and I did a run of, 6 or 7 shows where they were all character parts.
Yeah.
One of the advantages when I did Room Service off Broadway, Alan Arkin directed me. The critics came thinking I was going to be playing the Midwestern naive playwright.
Yeah.
Golly, I've never been in a big city before. Instead, I was sleazy Gordon Miller.
Yeah.
With the pomade in his hair and the mustache, and a wonderful, terrible person. But what I didn't realize was how I would flourish in voiceover.
Yeah.
Now, in voiceover, they cast with their ears, not their eyes. So you're going to play parts you'd never get on camera. Well, the Joker is a good example. He's
iconic.
6'2" and whatever. I'm just not physically right for it unless they reimagine it. But my point is, all these parts on camera would be routine if it were in voiceover, because they don't care, how you look, which is a great advantage. I tell young actors, really explore voiceover, because when I started doing a lot of voiceover, because the Joker sort of broke me open in a way that had never happened before, because they were like, really? Is that him? They didn't believe it was me, or they thought my voice was treated, or, as people were saying, do the voice. I mean, you're in a grocery store, you can't really let it rip. I thought, where has this been all my life? And I got to a point in the mid to late 90s where I thought, I don't care if I ever do on camera again. I'm comfortable here. The voiceover community is very welcoming. Such talented people working in that realm. And I realized I don't have to have a curtain call. I don't really care about the recognition as much as I care about the work.
Digging into the character and finding
exactly.
it. I heard an anecdote once from Robert Duvall that he said that he could get into a character when he found the character's shoes. He used to go to flea markets and would go around and he would buy a character's shoes. And when he found them, he would bring them to the wardrobe. I said, I found them. And then he could get in the character. I'm curious, because you're so accomplished in voice acting. I was blown away by your voice as the Major. I felt that it had this deep, resonant aggressiveness to it. And also in some of the mic stuff, is that part of the way you find your way into the characters, through finding the character's voice?
With the Major, I was drawing on a real life experience. My father was in the Navy, so we moved coast to coast and eventually got transferred to Yokohama, Japan. Now, normally we live off base in the States. Here, after summer in a Japanese house, we moved on base. So walking from my house to the PX, to get magazines or whatever it was, you'd have to walk past the Marine barracks. And out in the parking lot, August, 110 degrees, there's this guy putting them through their paces. And I remember how I thought I could never do this. And screaming at him, you dirtbag, all that stuff. That was who I sort of remembered. It just seemed like an otherworldly experience to put these guys through that. I don't know. I guess that helps to break them down or whatever it is. But he was the one I largely drew from. And I have to say, you mentioned wardrobe and hair. I have to shout out because they are a crucial part of the process.
Absolutely.
When I was trying to find, for instance, Arthur Gordon Pym in The Fall of the House of Usher, they had thought in advance, and I had as well. I thought, well, he's devoted to his work. He's like a sociopath, devoid of humanity, totally devoted to enabling this horrendous family. And I thought, well, he's a workaholic, so he'd get out of the shower, do this with a towel, and no hair product or anything. So I said, cut it short enough, just so it lies down.
Wow.
So that's an efficient haircut. And then they're showing me all the wardrobe and so forth. And that hat, that's the hat. You put the hat on, I'm so almost there. and props too, with glasses and so forth. So it's funny because your job is also a crucial part of the process, but since it doesn't involve me specifically, I rarely give a shout out to casting directors.
Right.
So I should.
I have to imagine it's been decades since you've actually auditioned for something. I mean, everything must come your way and you could decide whether you want to engage on it or not.
I guess. I mean, I'm trying to think if I've auditioned for, I mean, I'm willing to. I like auditioning.
Were you a good auditioner back in the day when you...
Well, you could never really control it. I mean, sometimes it wasn't something that you could just sort of make a general... Because a lot of times I'd come out and I think, well, I really made them laugh. I was getting, I was nailing the script, or they seemed really enthusiastic. Sometimes they always say, "Oh, thank you for coming in. Nice job."
Yeah.
But you're not sure what. There were times when I remember when it wasn't an audition for Star Wars. It was actually the screen test. I'd only read 12 pages. They didn't send you the whole script.
Right.
So I said to Harrison, "You were in American Graffiti. Is this like a send up or like a parody?" Whatever. He was no help at all. And I thought, okay, he's got his. I don't want to, interrupt his process, whatever it may be. And I went to George and said the same thing. Were we sort of sending this is kind of like a send up of he goes, well, let's just do it and we'll talk about it later. Translation, let's just do it and we'll never ever talk about it later. He's one of those directors who just doesn't want to hear about backstory or motivation.
Right.
When I finished that, my agent called and said, how did the screen test go? And I said, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because when it was over, George said, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't mean anything like that. He's real matter of fact.
And I've worked with directors before where the actor will walk out, the director, there's an actor I'm really excited to come in, and the director at the end of the read will go, thank you. And my heart sinks, and I go, oh, they didn't like him. And the actor walks out, and the director will go, they're hired. Wow. That was great. They're done. So it's like you can never really tell, what they're from whatever reaction you're getting in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I tell young actors, first of all, I say, if there's anything you like remotely as much as this, do that.
Do that.
Because, I mean, I remember one of the best actors I'd ever seen in my life to this day, Kathy Lightstone, when I was in theater arts at LACC. She just didn't have the makeup to take the rejection. She just couldn't, handle that part of it. And I say to people, you're in for a lifetime of rejection, not because you're bad. It's because the odds are that with 1,500 people all wanting the same part, you're to this, you're to that, your eye color, who knows?
Right.
It's just this intangible something. But if you liken it to spinning a roulette wheel, I mean, spin it enough times, odds are, it might take you 10,000 spins, but eventually it's going to hit on your number. And if you can take the one job, and I remember I was so heartbroken when Texas Wheelers was canceled because the character was really funny, but didn't think he was funny at all, was really serious. And that was the humor. And I thought, I never get cast in comedic roles like that. And I thought, I was really devastated in a way I hadn't been before. I'm on a soap opera. They let us go after 9 months. Okay, but it didn't really affect me, We'll move on to something else. This one really crushed me to the point where I sort of lost the momentum. I felt like, can I really go on? Now, had that show been a hit, I wouldn't have been available to do Star Wars.
But I love the way you brought the comic energy to Star Wars as well. Clearly you were still living in some Texas Wheeler state when you kind of brought that in.
Well, the thing is, when I read that script, people don't realize, even without John Williams' music, which is just such an important part of the experience, without the special effects, without anything, just the script alone read like the movie.
Right.
It was exciting. It was, unpredictable. Funny as hell. These robots arguing over whose fault it is. Now, I knew I was the straight man because, 3PO would get the joke. I do the setup, you do the punchline. But I knew my part in it. And I thought in terms of feminism, this is effortless because the princess is this tiny little thing, completely unintimidated by this hulking 6'7" masked man. And when she took over her own rescue, you call this a rescue? Give me that gun. I thought, this is she's not a damsel in distress in any way, shape, or form. So it was just delightful. I just thought, this is so great. The very first person I met when I went over to start was Robert Watts, who was the production manager. And he said, well, what do you think about what we're about to embark on. I said, I think we're on a winner. I said that from the start. I calculated. I had a friend, Jonathan Benaire, who worked at the LA Art Museum in the film department. I said, Jonathan, I read, by the way, I sent him the script as soon as I read it. I said, this is the craziest thing I've ever read. And he said, I know. He agreed. He said, it's unpredictable. Can I give it to Meredith? I said, sure. I only mentioned that because we were passing it all around. I mean, it wasn't until it was a success that it was so strict that you couldn't show it to anyone.
Of course.
With your name on the page.
They come with a, a safe for people.
Yeah. So
I'm curious though, because a lot of people don't realize that in casting we do chemistry reads, oftentimes before things. I mean, for The Long Walk, we read so many of the boys together. That's some of the most, you and Carrie and Harrison is some of the most iconic chemistry of all time. And did you do any kind of chemistry reads as a group first, or did it just happen on set?
I did the screen test with Harrison. So it was us in the cockpit. They eliminated the Wookiee and just had that scene. I never worked with Carrie, and what was interesting is I went over and started first, and then when Harrison came over, I didn't have to act. He was, I idolized him, and he was so cool and didn't give a damn, and all of that, all these things I wished I could be that I wasn't, which is, so George casts people that are so close to what he wants, he doesn't have to do a lot of direction.
It's like you can just let them loose
and
kind of,
exactly. So I would behave around Harrison the way Luke would around Han. Then we were there when we went back to England after Africa, Harrison's over. After about a week or two, then Carrie comes over. Now, I had never met her before, so I took her out to dinner, just like Guinness had taken me out so we could get to know each other a little bit before we start shooting. And I was just unprepared. I mean, she's only 19, but she's telling me stories that I wouldn't reveal about my family if I'd known you for 15 years. Like, should I be hearing this? About, I don't even want to go in. I don't feel right to talk about Debbie and Eddie in that way. But so witty and funny. I mean, she just bowled us over. And I thought, it's like the third piece of the puzzle has arrived because the balance is so right there.
And that's when it's really right. Like, to me, when I read a script as like a puzzle, and all of the actors are the amazing pieces, and getting to put those pieces together, to me, that's what's really exciting about casting. I feel like The Long Walk was a specific one because these boys don't know each other at the beginning of the walk. They don't. But within a span of a very short time, they have to form these life and death bonds. I had heard that the guys actually didn't want to meet you.
Well, here's the thing. I decided to throw a meet and greet brunch at my hotel over a weekend to meet everybody. And Francis said, well, he specified, so well, Cooper says he doesn't want to meet you. I said, what? Why? And I went, of course. That's his process. Of course, you don't want to be friendly and jocular with,
he's probably afraid he's going to like you.
That's right. In fact, that's the exact quote was, he's afraid he's going to like you. I said, I totally get it. I canceled the brunch. And I said, look, I'll do it on a case-by-case basis. If somebody comes over to me, I'm going to certainly acknowledge them. And I did my fair share of selfies. But whatever he wants, that's the way she goes. And by the way, tell him when he gets to know me, he will like me.
He will like me, right? Of course, of course.
But, it reminded me of a story when they were shooting Marathon Man. And Olivier's sitting in the makeup chair. And Dustin Hoffman comes in looking like, oh, hell, dark circles, chain smoking, handshaking, 4-day growth. Dustin, dear boy, what's going on with you? He said, well, I've been up for 3 days. I thought, he goes in the description of what a method actor would do, and Olivier goes, oh dear, you really must try acting, which is so English because they do external in and we do inwards out. I remember Guinness telling me he couldn't find his character for the Lady Killers. He said it was a Thursday. We started shooting on Monday. I had no idea. And I asked the dentist, could he see me over the weekend? He made me a pair of veneers. Not big Jerry Lewis, but just subtle. You can tell he really uses them. But he said, looked in the mirror and said, there's my character. And I said, that's the perfect example of a British actor, having to work externally to see how they look and then finding the
being
character.
able to internalize it from the external.
Yeah.
What do you do?
And by the way, he told me that when he was doing the Man in the White Suit, who he credited? He said, I owe my performance to Stan Laurel. And first of all, I was shocked that he was a Laurel and Hardy fan.
Yeah.
It turns out the British have a great affection for Laurel and Hardy films. They're on television a lot, which I discovered when I was over there. But, Guinness, to me, seems so highbrow, and that low comedy, physical comedy would be below him. Not only was it not, but when you watch the film again, that innocence and bewilderment over more sophisticated characters is really evident. People don't realize that Laurel and Hardy really were good actors.
Oh, that's fantastic. March of the Wooden Soldiers is one of my favorite movies of all time. But it's amazing to me, in casting, when I was an actor before I got into casting, and I was a really good actor. I was a terrible auditioner because I was a bit of a people pleaser. So I would go in there wanting to please my agent and my parents, but I wasn't focused on what the character wanted and what the character needed. So whenever an actor comes into the office, I'm very open to whatever energy they're bringing. And I remember David Johnson, when he came in for The Long Walk, he was very cold and not very friendly. Right. He's the loveliest guy, but was very, and I said, no problem. And we went into it. He did the scene. It was one of the best auditions I've ever seen in my life.
The scene at the end?
He did. It was so incredible. I called Francis afterwards. I said, I know this is crazy. We just started auditioning, but I think we found McVrees. Anyway, cut to when the film opened, I saw David, and he came right up to me and gave me a hug and said, I was so nervous that you would hate me and think I was terrible because I was so cold when I came in. And I said, no, you were in your moment as an actor, because every actor that comes in is in a different state. Some of them are in character already. Some of them want to be chatty.
A lot of the times your desire for the role can mess you up because it can throw you off your rhythm, your timing's wrong. Even if you don't feel this way, act aloof. Act like you don't want the part, or not that.
Not that you want it too badly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that can work to your advantage, because with The Joker, what happened was about a month before I auditioned, that whole brouhaha where they announced that Michael Keaton was going to play Batman, and the fan community freaked out. Oh, he's Mr. Mom. He's a comic actor. He can't play Batman. I'm thinking, you haven't even seen an inch of film. Relax. But that was the atmosphere. Within 3 weeks, I was auditioning for The Joker, and I'm driving in thinking, well, if the fan community freaked out over Mr. Mom being Batman, how are they going to feel about Luke Skywalker being the Joker? I'm saying is, Rich, I thought, there's no way I can get it.
Right.
So any performance anxiety, I thought, the best I can do is make them wish they could hire me, because they're not going to do another thing that really freaks the fans out. So what I'm saying is, I went in, I had no performance anxiety because I knew I couldn't get it, and I just let it rip and had a grand old time, and I was very cocky driving out thinking, top that.
Right.
And the minute I got it, I went, oh no!
Right. Now what am I going to do?
I can't follow Cesar Romero and Jack Nicholson. I did tell my agents, I'd like to play a part that's never been done before, whether it's Ra's al Ghul or Two-Face or any of them, Clayface. I don't want to follow in someone's footsteps. I don't want to follow, Burgess Meredith or Danny DeVito as Penguin and so forth. And so I really, like I say, it wasn't until I did that first recording that I was calmed down, because driving in, I couldn't even remember what I did.
Wow.
I'm trying to find the voice. It was a month before that I had done it.
Sometimes you go to those places, though, where it's just like, it's almost like you're in a different zone.
Yeah.
Right? And you leave and you're like, what just happened? One of the things that excites me the most is that there's so much more representation in casting right now, that, you're really seeing across all of the stories that are being told, the directors that are telling stories, the actors that are coming in. You're just seeing such a wider swath of people from all different spectrums. And to me, that's very exciting. One of the ways that it's changed is a lot of casting has now become virtual. Actors are self-taping, and you're watching self-tapes as part of the process. And then it's a little bit of a hybrid where maybe people are self-taping and then you're bringing them in to work. So first I was really, this was hard for me to deal with as a casting director, but I'm a big believer that change is the only constant. And even if we don't like it, we have to roll with the change. And I've since found positives because of that, because like Tut Noyoit, who plays Baker in The Long Walk, such an amazing actor.
Yeah.
He's a South Sudanese British actor who taped in London, and I watched the self-tape, and I was like, I think this kid is special. I think he's the one. That's someone who wouldn't have been able to necessarily come into the process before if everyone was just coming into the room. So I think you can always find positives in the change as well.
That's even more competition for actors.
Even more competition. Now it's like a worldwide search with all of these people coming in from all over. So, but I'm sure you've seen immense changes in the industry.
Yes, and what happens is the older you get, the less you sweat the small stuff. Because my agent will be real excited, say, "Oh, I got to get you into a Marvel movie." No, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want me, they know where I am.
They know where I am.
Exactly. So, I see these things, and so they're all very impressive, but you reach a point where, I really felt like I've done what I set out to do. I was much more successful than I could ever have dared dream. So I'm good. I'm really good. And I always remember this quote when they asked Stan Laurel to do a cameo in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which he declined, saying, "I don't wish to be seen in my old age," which put things in perspective. I think I've been able to do a lot more than I ever dreamed possible. So it's a really sweet spot to be in because I'm good. I would have liked spreading it out a little bit more because from December to December, I had 5 features. I was in the voice cast of The Wild Robot and then played King Herod in The King of Kings, then Chuck, then Long Walk, and upcoming for people that are fans of sophisticated highbrow comedy, the SpongeBob movie.
Of course.
Search for SquarePants. Which again, I mean, I just had a ball doing it because it's so silly and the cast is brilliant and it's like doing children's theater because, I mean, at least my character is completely serious about things. It's just effortlessly wacky and wonderful.
Well, it's nice to be able to mix it up. I know after I work on like an intense drama like The Long Walk, I love to be able to work on a comedy or a musical or because you take on the energy of the projects you work on. So
I think it's great that you had been an actor yourself because you understand the process. You can make it so much less stressful for actors. Because you've been there yourself.
I don't know how I would be in casting if I hadn't been an actor, because I find that I use it every day within casting, whether it's in the way I speak to actors, the way I understand them. My job is to help fulfill the director's vision. Sometimes an actor comes in and I love what they're doing, but I know that the director's looking for something different, so you have to be able to talk to them and figure out, how do we help get you this job? I never believed when I was an actor, people used to say casting directors want you to be good or casting directors are on your side. I didn't believe that when I was an actor. Now I know it to be true in casting because when an actor comes in, anything I can do that can help them do their best work, then I can do my best work.
Well, I find it interesting that you were doing casting without Francis there. In other words, you're winnowing down masses of people to present to him.
Share that.
I always thought the director would be there from day one, but I guess it's impossible. Plus, he's always working.
Always working.
I mean, I didn't see him on the promotional trail for this in Europe.
He was in the new Hunger Games.
Exactly. Well, it's one thing to actually do the work and do the movie, do the television show, whatever it may be. The promotion is a whole different level. Now, it's a skill in and of itself. Sometimes I watch people on talk shows like, he's so good. Why couldn't, or she handled that beautifully? Harrison's got it made because he's kind of intimidating and he uses that, where he'll stare and they'll give a complicated question. He'll go, no. One syllable. And the question was 2.5 minutes long. He's a special case. It's really difficult for me because I don't really like talking about myself. And I also with like something with Chuck, I say, how am I going to promote this? How do you describe the indescribable? And plus part of the joy of the movie is the discovery on the part of the audience. So if you start telling them about it, you're taking away the revelations that happen in the movie. Even by telling people that it's told Act 3, Act 2, Act 1. Go in cold. And those are the people I think that it has the most impact is when they don't know what to expect.
I love watching a movie cold, not knowing anything about it. Sometimes I've even been guilty if I'm working on a television show, if I'm casting a television show, of specifically not reading the last episode, because I want to leave a little element of surprise for myself as the viewer when I'm watching it. But I find it's really important in between jobs or whenever I have some downtime, because so much of my downtime is spent watching other movies and becoming aware of actors. I like to go out, for me personally, go out in nature, just hike, do walks. That's why Los Angeles is so wonderful.
Clear your head.
Clear my head, and I feel like it allows me to kind of recharge the batteries so that when I come back and I have to make a list or read actors or, break down a script, I've exercised other muscles so that I can actually then focus that way again.
I look at how much the business has changed since I got into it, where there was basically 3 networks and then Fox came along. I was really grateful in retrospect to be able to get the technical training of the soap because it wasn't in prime time. They had their audience, but it wasn't people like you casting primetime shows. It was a place to learn to find your mark and your light, all the technical things that you wanted to do. Because when I heard they wanted me to audition for a soap opera, I don't like. The only time I watch them is to mock them openly. And it turned out not only were the people really great, they themselves, you should have seen the run-throughs, the dress rehearsals. They're sending it up more than I would.
Right.
And then they're professional on camera. But that was a great experience because just the volume of material, week after week. But now with streaming services and 300 channels, I love these limited series where there's 8 episodes or 10 episodes and they can tell a whole season in half the time. I just think it's a great time to be a young actor in this business.
Absolutely.
On my social media, I wrote, you have to have something under your name, a bio, and I wrote something that when I quit Twitter the day after the election, because I didn't want to be supportive of anything Elon Musk does, I went to Blue Sky, but I thought I'll keep the bio which says, and I believe this, believe in yourself, work hard, never give up, and anything's possible.
I love that.
Yeah. Now, I did write an escape. I said, or sit back, relax, lower your... and you won't be disappointed.
Lower your expectations.
Yes, exactly. Right. But I was just trying to, because that's pretty direct. But I do believe it because I think for young people, you have to believe in yourself because you're the only one that controls your attitude and your presentation. Don't give in to other people's expectations and so forth. Yes, it would be hard when you wouldn't get the part, but you would find a way to say, well, I didn't want that part anyway, or they didn't appreciate me, whatever. Right. You have to have some sort of crust to suffer the slings and arrows of just having a career.
Yeah.
Because the odds are you're not right for the part. And like I tell young people, it's not because you're not talented, but you have to see it from their perspective. When I read a script, I look at it, whether it's Long Walk or Life of Chuck, what is required of me in this scenario to make the script work as best as I possibly can? Mm-hmm. Why is my character there? And once you understand that, you're halfway home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a casting professional, I think that really understanding, it's crucial, of course, to see as much as you can, to see as much theater as you can, as many films as you can, as many shows as you can, to really become aware of the actors, but also the classics. You mentioned Laurel and Hardy, and my favorite actors, if you look in my office, there's posters of Humphrey Bogart and Bette Davis, and and to understand the craft of acting and where it comes from and how it's changed over the years, but there are certain things that just are timeless. And that's where you can really understand, I think, the concept of character work and of script breakdown and analysis and really figuring out where your character fits into the story. And I think some of the younger people aren't really aware. It's always shocking to me when an actor will come in my office and I'll say, though, that really reminded me of a moment that Clark Gable had or Marlon Brando had, and they're like,
who's Clark Gable?
Who? And I'm like, you're an actor.
Don't tell me. I did a movie with Lee Marvin, the big red one, and I tell an anecdote about him, but like you say, an extraordinary number of young people say, "Who's Lee Marvin?" I'm thinking,
oh my God.
Talk about famous, fleeting.
Yes.
An Oscar winner who had a decade-spanning career.
Yeah. And it's important to understand not only where we are, but how we got here and where we came from. And for whatever facet you are. People said to me a lot of times with The Long Walk, when you were casting The Long Walk and you thought of this ensemble, I specifically had in my mind The Outsiders, Stand By Me, these incredible ensembles of young actors, and how we kind of can look back now and go, well, that was this incredible group of actors that were at the nascent of their careers, and see them all together in this film. And I think of that when you're casting. It's like, where are these films going to live in the catalog of film history? I try to think about not just where do these characters live in the context of the story, but what is this film's place, and where does it exist?
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for coming to do this. I know the Casting Society is so excited that this is the inaugural year that we are getting the Casting Oscar. It is such
about time.
Oh, thank you. And so many casting directors that worked so hard for us to have this moment, and so I'm so thrilled that they're doing this series, and thank you for agreeing to participate.
Of course. Well, like I say, you are a crucial part of the process. It's a composite art. Everyone needs everyone else, and I think your profession in particular gets overlooked because we're not involved in that process. We need our hair people. We need our wardrobe, all of that, the cast and crew on set, but that's an easily overlooked aspect of this business. So I'm grateful for you being there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So
My
appreciate
pleasure.
that.